Hello, my name is Dr. Sarah Prestridge and I'm from Griffith University in Australia. My colleague, Dr. Denise Cox, and I have just recently got an article published in Active Learning in Higher Education, and we'd like to share that article with you here. What we looked at was the use of Microsoft Teams in an online course. I'm going to do a couple of videos on this article because I think it's really important. But today I'm going to give you the overall findings of the study. But in another video, I'm going to look at the learning design. So how we organise the learning so that students could relate to one another in that student-student engagement. In another video, I'm just going to focus on the types of engagement that the students did in Microsoft Teams. Because I see in a lot of the articles we have so far, it doesn't really focus on the pedagogy of the academic to try to help students engage online. I actually think this article's relevant to anyone using an asynchronous discussion forum, not just at the tertiary level, but at that mainstream schooling level as well. And I hope this is informative for you. So in 2018, we had 181 students across 3 campuses, and we kind of conceptualised to ourselves the 2 different platforms we were using. One was our management system, where the students were quite used to receiving resources, checking for their marks, getting their content. So we used Microsoft Teams wholly for that collaborative communication, where we were trying to get the students to engage with one another. Because student-to-student engagement is critical online. It's not just receiving content, it's enacting that content online. So we know that in those asynchronous discussion forums so far in the literature that mainly there is a focus on the quantitative measures, how often the students would engage, or the time that was actually spent on, say, viewing a lecture or reviewing a lecture. But what we were actually interested in was the engagement between the students and how they were co-constructing knowledge, how they were doing learning processes such as responding, expanding, creating ideas, and that influence of social presence. So instead of counting how often they would engage, we downloaded all of the posts from the asynchronous discussion forum and we analysed the content. So we analysed the content of 3,855 student posts. We found basic types of engagement. Now, some of these are evident currently in the literature, and I'll let you read those. But basically, lurk and superficial engagement is low complexity, and then you've got task, where the students are focused on completing the tasks. Then you go to activities such as where a student will reply with a comment, a contributing comment. So that's like a respond type of engagement. Then you get students who will expand on a student's post, actually trying to draw out ideas. And then you'll get students who create whole new ideas to be discussed in this environment. So it ranges from the lurker, the person who only views the activity, to those superficial sort of agreeing sort of types of engagements, completely to the other end of the spectrum where the students are actually creating new dialogue and new activities for the group. And when we looked at it across the course, we noticed a few things. Now, if you have a look at the graph, task-based activity types was the majority, and that happened across the course. But so did lurking. But interestingly, the students lurked more towards the end of the course than they did at the beginning. And when you look at respond, the students were actively responding right way through the course. Now, in Create, we only had 2 instances of students creating new dialogue and new ideas to be discussed. But what we wanted to do was go a little bit deeper than that. So we were really interested in the level of complexity of their engagement with how often they were engaging. And we're calling this a typology of online cognitive social learning engagement. And I'll go through that with you now. So we found 4 different profiles from our students. So we put intensity up the top, and complexity down the bottom. And you can see in that very first quadrant, we had students who we considered were champions based on the analysis of the data. So those students champion each other, their high intensity in the online discussion forum and their high complexity. And we found about 37 students were engaging like that across the course. Then you've got the student who's what we're calling a striker. Now, a striker is low intensity, so not often, but when they do say something, they knock the ball out of the park to a degree. So it's high complexity work still. As you can see, we've actually used acronyms or names of our different types that are based on US sports type of behaviour, because it's Microsoft Teams, and the idea here was to play like a team in Teams. So we use these sort of type of terms to help you remember the type of activity or behaviour the students were demonstrating. So if it was complex work, they were either champions or strikers. Now we go to those who were lower in complexity. We call these the hustlers. The hustlers were those students who were often on the ball and doing activity, but the complexity was low. So they'd like, or agree with the comments that were being made. And then you've got your bench sitter. So low intensity, so not very often, and low complexity, not very complex. So they're the 4 different approaches we found, or profiles we were seeing of our students. So what does this all mean for you as a teacher or an instructor at a university? We know in learning communities that it's made up of all different types. So we've identified these 4 different profiles. And one of the ideas is to make those profiles conscious for your students. Are you behaving like a champion here? Are you behaving like a striker? Do you hustle within this course? So even activating their students' awareness of how they're actually behaving in the course may alter their behaviour. However, we haven't got further research about the fact that, do we ask students to alter? Do we try to move a bench sitter to become a champion? Because when you design learning environments, it's the choice the student is making, how they are engaging. And we haven't done the research to actually identify if that change is necessary, because in a learning community, there's all different types of activity and engagement types. But one of the clear things that we did get out of this was having a language to talk about online engagement behaviour. And I think that's critical now moving forward with the idea that we're doing much more online work now with our students. So thank you very much for listening to me today. If you're interested in contacting me or asking more about this, please email me or tweet a comment to me. I'm very happy to answer that. I hope this helped. Thank you.